Mr. Prime Minister, Joe Biden has been facing intense pressure at home from within his own party to step down because of concerns over his mental acuity at the age of 81 years old. During this NATO summit, Mr. Prime Minister, what is your assessment of President Biden's performance and if he can lead on the global stage? And if you could also take that question and answer in French as well.
We are lucky on the world stage to have Joe Biden leading here at NATO, on the G7, in some extraordinarily consequential times. His depth of experience, his thoughtfulness, his steadfastness on the greatest issues and challenges of our time is a credit to the work that we're all doing together, and it has been, as always, a privilege and pleasure to work alongside him on big issues, and I look forward to continuing to.
Glenn McGregor, City News. Prime Minister, you say you have a plan to spend this money, but do you also have a plan to pay for it? Because the estimates are this is going to cost $15, $20 billion annually in perpetuity. How do you do that in the fiscal framework? Do you cut other programs? Do you go deeper into deficit?
We have demonstrated over the past number of years that we can and have been investing in our national defense, $175 billion of projected new investments in national defense, and now into the future, in a responsible way, and at a time where we're also stepping up with the most ambitious housing plan Canada has ever seen. Investing in childcare, because we know that's not just a social program, that's also an economic program. Creating economic growth, creating record high employment. Investing in the green jobs of the future. These are things we're doing even as we invest record levels in our military and continue to. The situation, the global context requires us to be stepping up on defense. But I will remind people that stepping up on defense investments doesn't just involve spending money outside of this country. It means investing in capacity building, in good jobs, in innovation, in factories and development of economic growth.
He's just spitting out stuff now at this point. While we invest in ourselves and our ability not just to defend ourselves and our north, but our allies at a time where everyone is interconnected.
Hi, Prime Minister. Thanks for taking our questions. You've announced that you're going to get to 2%, which has been a long anticipated thing that your allies have been looking for, and you say it's by 2032. But your government hasn't attached money in terms of commitments, weapon systems, explaining how we're going to get there. So I'm wondering how credible you think allies or Canadians will find this plan when you're releasing something so major as sort of a sub-point in a press conference.
On the contrary, we have steadily increased over the past years our investments in defense. $175 billion in new defense spending announced over the past 8 years, with significant material and equipment purchases. We have demonstrated, including most recently with our North Strong and Free Defense Policy Update, a credible, concrete plan that gets us to 1.74% by 2030. Now, that's starting from a place where the previous government had us below 1% of GDP.
There it is.
On defense spending. So we have had to steadily and massively invest in increasing our capabilities in Canada over the past number of years, because it's not just something the Canadians expect or our allies expect. It's something that the world requires. The world is a more dangerous, unstable place with shifting geopolitical realities, more conflicts and wars springing up in places we wouldn't expect. There is a need, particularly with our responsibility over the Arctic, to be stepping up, and that's what we have done. And because we have a concrete plan that gets us to 174, with included in it plans on submarines that we hadn't yet officialized, with plans on other capabilities that we're developing, plans to increase enrollment and enlistment as well. These are things that means we can say with confidence and assurance that we will hit the 2% spending mark by 2032.
Next question.
Murray Brewster with CBC News. Prime Minister, thank you for taking the question. The timeline could have very well have been just a line in your defense policy last spring. Why wasn't it announced until this point? And you could have saved yourself a whole world of grief by doing so. So why wasn't it announced? But also at the same time, how much confidence can we place in this timeline when you see the economic indicators that underpin this calculation showing Canada actually moving backward away from the target you set in the defense policy? So how much can we actually place stock in what we see here today?
How much can we trust you? We can't.
One of the things that we have demonstrated is consistent investments in defense, in understanding that the world has changed, and where the previous government had defense spending hit record lows, below 1%, despite a commitment to move towards 2%.
That was 10 years
ago. We had a
ago.
lot of catching up to do, and that had big purchases involved. When Canada talks about reaching 10%, that's as one of the largest defense budgets in NATO. We are buying big things, we are building big things, and we are protecting the longest coastline in the world, including with increased responsibilities for the Arctic. We laid out a defense policy update that wasn't focused on answering media questions or focused on political advantage. It was about doing what is right and what is needed in a responsible way. That's why I'm happy to turn to Bill Blair to further talk about the DPU and the 2% pledge. Bill.